Hey guys, welcome back. I am very excited for this podcast, and I have a little bit of bias because it is my sister that is on. My sister Lindsay is joining us today, and not for any random reason. She actually has a lot of really good information to give us. A lot of things that she is into, yoga, CBD, things like that, that we're going to touch on, and things that I personally really don't know a whole lot about. And I think that can really contribute to health and wellness and help people with a lot of chronic pain. And so I want to bring her on here to talk a little bit more about all that stuff as to give you guys as much information as possible. So just a little background on my sister. She is one of my two older sisters. She has an exercise science bachelor's from Arizona State. And actually, that is when she went off to Arizona State, I was about 13, I think, 12 or 13. And that was actually the first time I realized that you could actually go to school to study exercise and nutrition. Uh, so that kind of steered my whole way of thinking for the next, yeah, what is it? I'm gonna almost be 40, so almost the next 28 years here. So she is a big reason why I got into nutrition and training and exercise science because she paved the path. So with all that being said, Lindsay, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. This is
So
fun.
what did I leave out? What other things do you want people to know about you?
Yeah, you're right. So I have a degree from Arizona State in exercise, a bachelor's in exercise science, and then I spent the next, I don't know, a couple years personal training and digging into yoga, which I discovered in college. And then I worked for a good amount of time at the Y as a director, and kind of dug into program directing and administrative stuff. And then became a mom and started working in an office with my family, my mom and my stepdad, right? And kind of just let my yoga practice grow and figured out how to be a mom, which I'm still figuring out at this point, a dozen years later. And now I am teaching yoga again. I had stopped for a period of time. And so digging back into teaching yoga, and I have a CBD business that you mentioned. And mainly it became a business because it was a key component of my own health, if you will. Um, and yeah, I'm married, living Northwest Indiana, and just trying to do the thing the right way.
Yeah, yesterday it was about 50 and sunny, and today it's about 28 and snowing out right now where we live. So
Hmm.
definitely get a good variety of seasons if you want to live in the Northwest,
Welcome
Midwest, I should
back.
say. Um, so as she mentioned, yes, she has a daughter and husband. Funny fact is that my niece Gia was born the day I was flying back from Iraq from my deployment. So I actually got off the plane in the US and got a voice message from my dad saying she's here. Um, but yeah, so it's nice to be back. I just moved back close to them a few months ago, about 7 months now. I just did the math
And then
yesterday.
fast forward, and your daughter was born 2 days after
Yeah,
Gia's
yeah,
birthday. While we were
yep.
having Gia's birthday party, you were
Yep, that's
meeting your
right.
daughter.
Many years later, many years later,
Hmm.
but that's all right. Um, so I want to dig into the very beginning a little bit more. Like, what made you want to go into exercise science to begin with? Because, I mean, we're talking, you graduated 97 or 99?
97.
97. Farrah was 95. Yeah.
Hmm.
So back then, and I've talked a lot to people like back in the 90s, late 90s, like I was still reading bodybuilding magazines off the shelf. Like there was nothing in terms of education or content or anything that we have these days. So, how did you even find out about the exercise science program at Arizona State and what made you want to go that route?
Um, so that's a fun question because that's like another lifetime ago, it feels like, right? I found out about Arizona State first and foremost from our uncle,
Hmm.
right? Who, Larry or Dave, who sent that constantly? Larry mostly.
Yeah, mostly Larry.
Either way, he was always sending things as you were growing up about the university and lived in Arizona, and or in Phoenix. So that was my first kind of introduction to Arizona State. And I was a little bit fascinated by the university as I went through high school. I ended up wanting to go there because I wanted to be a cheerleader, right? I'd been
Right.
a cheerleader. That was kind of my claim to fame. And I loved it. I wasn't very athletic except in that. And so that was my drive to go there. And I went to Arizona State with a majoring in psychology. And that was what I wanted to do. And then part of the way into my first year, the whole cheerleading thing's another story. I broke my leg right at the beginning of my senior year and still thought I'd go out there and be a cheerleader. And, it's like an entire thing to do that.
It's intense. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I
and you're a
mean,
college
true
athlete.
athletes.
You're a
Yes,
college athlete for
exactly.
sure.
So I was not. And so I kind of realized that psychology was you get lost in, it's a big
Hmm.
major. And my mom, who you and I share dad and have different moms,
Yeah.
though my mom's your mom's my mom, but my mom was always into fitness. So her kind of
Hmm.
side jobs was teaching aerobics in the 80s, and she was at the Y in a room full of 100 people she was teaching and leg
Yeah.
warmers and all that. And I was fascinated by it. And she was such a good example of um, many healthy habits for me.
Right.
And honestly, I was at Arizona State and I was kind of at this crossroad in the first year, and I was standing outside of the exercise science building and I looked up and I was like, if I do this, I will have a thread in me that will keep me driven to be healthy for the rest of my life.
Right.
It just was very clear to me. I knew
Hmm.
that if I did this and committed to a career in this, that though there would be unhealthy habits and unhealthy things that might occur, I would always maintain that drive.
And this
So
was
that's why
what,
I
when
walked
you're
in. Go
18,
ahead.
19?
Yeah, I still would have been 18 at that point, almost
Okay.
19.
So still your freshman year.
So, hmm?
Still your freshman year.
Yep, my
Yep.
freshman year, part halfway into it, and I went in, I changed my major, and then lo and behold, that was the number one major at the university at that time.
Hmm.
And Arizona State had a 7% graduation rate when I got there in 97. So 7% of incoming freshmen graduated within 5 years. So I
Wow.
hold my degree quite valuable.
Yeah, Arizona State's always ranked up there with one of the top party schools, that's for sure.
Yes, and I will just sidebar because it's an alma mater that I'm incredibly proud of. About the time that I left, we got a new president, Michael Crow. And from that moment forward, he worked on making this the great American university. And it
Hmm.
actually, in the last 20 years, has become that. And so they even talk about how the culture of the school and that whole city of Phoenix was such a party. And they had to really break from that to get some sustainability. But it's a degree I'm very proud of. I learned a lot in that program, and in the course of that year, the next year, my sophomore year, I needed a 1 credit class. And I was looking around and I saw yoga. And I thought, okay. So I signed up for it. And there was a syllabus. Does anybody know what those are anymore? Do we get syllabus?
I'm actually more surprised there's a syllabus for a yoga class.
It was a class with credits, right? So
Yeah.
the teacher had listed everything you needed. My experience prior to this, though, I'd been in the gym and lifting weights and worked out. The only yoga I'd ever been introduced was to, some of you may remember, like Wailani Yoga was the Hawaiian lady with this digital background, and she would do yoga on like
Mm,
PBS or something. And when I was little, I would watch it and I was kind of fascinated, but I'd never done yoga.
yeah.
So I come into this class, this 1 credit class, and the syllabus had said you need 2 blocks and a Mexican blanket, a mat, a strap, shoes off, no gum, and if you have long hair, put it up. And for whatever reason, I followed the rules. And I get into this class and I sit down, and this woman comes in with this long white hair, and she's very firm. She's tiny. And she's saying, if you don't have your 2 blocks and your mat and your blankets, if you have gum in your mouth or your hair's not up, this might be a 1 credit class, but it's very serious. So you can go. And all these people start packing up their shit and going.
Yeah.
And I look around, I'm like, I've got everything, I'll stay. So we go through this 1 hour yoga practice, and at the end, we're sitting there, and it was downward dogs and triangles and very traditional poses that I'd not done that were really neat. And at the end, we're meditating. And by the time we got done, I was floating, like I was on some drug, which I was not at that time, right? And it was amazing to me that you could feel that way, and that kind of peace I felt in that, and I was hooked from that moment forward. So at 19, I then really dug into yoga. And when I
Mhm.
graduated from Arizona State, I had a degree in exercise science. I got an American College of Sports Medicine health and fitness instructor, which at the time ACSM was, I just
Yeah.
wanted the top of the line, right? Because I got out with
That
my
was my
degree
first
and
certification too, was ACSM.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, and think it, like, it means a lot to me to think that and you've said that to me before, but to know that some of my choices that weren't always the best, but I found my way, were inspiring to you. And then you
Well,
just took it and rocketed.
well, the good thing is a lot of the bad choices I was too young to understand anyway.
That is good. Yes, I appreciate
So I
that.
didn't actually know about the psychology route. I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
that
I
was
mean,
what I first
obviously,
went
our other
for.
sister Farah went deep into the psychology route, but I did not know that you originally went there for that.
Yeah, I changed halfway through that
Interesting.
freshman year, but I really was into psychology and I think more like philosophy was what I was
Yeah,
into. But once I got in there and then, it was a big field. Psychology at the time was a huge field. If you didn't know
yeah,
what to do, you kind of but were into stuff like maybe deeper thoughts of stuff, that's where you went. So, but yeah, and I came out, and when I came out and got that health and fitness, I encountered a certification called PIO. And at the time, it was a Pilates yoga combination. The music was very yoga with a little beat, and the movements were yoga, but it was fascinating to me. So I got that certification, and off I went for the next few years, personal training and focusing on yoga. Came back to Northwest Indiana and spent a little time doing that until I got engaged, got married in 2004, and that kind of appointment based at the time employment wasn't really working. I'd have 3 or 4 appointments in a day and they'd be together and then somebody would cancel. Next thing I know, I'd have one and it wasn't really a sustainable source of income.
yeah. Yeah, for those of you guys that don't know or have never been a personal trainer, it is a very, very difficult profession, mostly because of what she just said. Like you could have your whole schedule planned out for the day, and if people cancel, you don't get paid most of the time, and especially if you're working at a gym, then they're taking a good percentage of your money too. So, a really good personal trainer that you find you want to hold on to and make sure that you're making those appointments and keeping them because it's tough to be a personal trainer. I mean, I did it for a little bit in the gym before I went into the army, and in Tampa, where people are a little bit more health conscious and stuff, it's still tough. I mean, there's a lot of competition down there, and there's also a lot of bad trainers out there too. You got to watch out for as well. But in terms of, let's go back to the first yoga class, the meditation. Admittedly, and you know this about me, I don't have a easy time concentrating. I don't think I've ever been able to meditate. Not in that sense that you're talking about. Like
Yeah, that was
when I'm
intense.
out on my horses or hunting or out in, like I can let my mind be a little bit more still and quiet, but I've never been able to get into one of those meditations. And, through different things I've done in the past, I've tried meditation and they've tried that in terms of um, like a recovery method for me and stuff through therapy. And I've just never been one that's been able to get into that. And I know a lot of people feel that way too. Like, I don't want to say they think of meditation as like this kooky thing, but I don't think that people understand how to get into that mindset. Like, did it just come natural to you, or what have you learned over the years to try to help get yourself into that meditative state quicker and easier?
That's a very good question. So, first, I'll tell you, like with anything, it's habit and
Yeah.
repetition and consistency, right? So, I mean, when I first started really developing my meditation practice was probably about 10 years into my yoga journey. As I backed off of teaching and started that job at the Y, I wasn't really able to pursue all that, right? So I dug into my own yoga practice, which then dug into meditation. And I started with the app Calm, which I still use today. Often it's got a 10-minute daily guided meditation. And I would sit there and there would be days that I was itching my nose and sneezing and things were dripping and I was coughing and moving and all that. And I just over time found this peace, this way to find this comfort, stretch my neck a bit, and whatever worked for me. If I needed to stop and blow my nose, I didn't kind of beat myself up over it. When I had to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle, I just kind of learned to meet myself wherever I was every day because I knew there was, it was the first time I was doing something that I knew there was an invisible benefit long down the road, moments when I wasn't in meditation, I knew it was going to pay off. I knew people doing this practice for thousands of years had to be something, like, or however many years.
So what sort of benefits do you get from it? Like you
I think
personally?
more than anything, there's this alignment with yourself and this
Uh-huh.
understanding of being really present that you find when you're in challenging moments. And once you learn to tap into your body a little bit, the sensations of how those moments feel, whether it's the frustration coming at you or a moment of panic, maybe, or discomfort, you can feel them in your body first. And for some people, that's like an alert, like a red flag. Okay, I
Yeah.
can see this coming, and now I can use those skills of a breath or a moment where I can not react. I can respond in the way that I want to. I can do this with a clear head, right? Whatever that moment is, you gather of challenge, you gather these moments in meditation with yourself privately and quietly
Hmm.
that show up when you need them. I mean, I know it sounds a little elusive, but it's one of those things that it's a this whole journey with yourself.
Yeah.
I do want to say one thing though.
Yeah, go ahead.
What you were talking about being with the horses, you and I decades ago out in Florida, there was a run, a jog that we took that was a very spiritual experience for us. Some quiet times in nature. Those are all meditations too. And
Yeah.
Buddha, who was a Christian, this is another podcast I would love to do with you episode. Buddha was a Christian man. He was a rich, wealthy Christian boy of royalty.
Hmm.
And so Buddhism became that because people followed his teachings and made it a religion. But Buddha sat under a tree in stillness and learned how to be in stillness to reach enlightenment, right? This is not what meditation is for everybody. There are walking meditations that you can go through, like a walking maze, if you will. It's about finding that moment, exactly what you said, when you can drop your mind down a little bit. Everybody has a monkey mind. Some of our monkeys are busier than others.
Yeah, that's
And
for
when
sure.
you can kind of let that monkey rest, and it's really about your nervous system regulating for a minute, if that's in contact with horses or walking or whatever it is,
Right.
that's meditation, right?
So I think a lot of people that have never done medication or meditation, I should say,
Hmm.
um, I think that they, and this is still kind of my perception, I guess, since I've never really been able to fully meditate, I think, the way that you're talking about. I mean, I do calm down a little bit and everything, but in terms of like totally just kind of losing myself in the moment and everything, I don't know if I've ever fully gotten there. I mean, the things that I talked about help me calm down and they help me relax a little bit, but my mind's always still working. So I think a lot of people when they hear about meditation, they think just like no thoughts, right? Like you're just almost blankly staring at the wall, like you're not even there. And is that what it is, or are you still having thoughts? Are you still, or is it just like you're slowing those thoughts down and looking at them from a different perspective? Like, do you get what I'm trying to say there?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, very much so. I think that people have the misconception that meditation is that you can clear your mind and absolutely sit still in comfort, right?
Right.
And it's just not the case. For some people, it might be very simple, but in my opinion and experience, meditation is about at least slowing the body down enough to connect with the breath so that these thoughts can come and go and you kind of don't attach anything to it. It might be even a thought as simple as that sound you heard outside.
Yeah.
Nobody expects you to pretend like you don't hear the sound. Meditation is really about hearing the sound, acknowledging what it is, not quite holding on to it and letting it pass. And
Yeah.
sometimes they're coming in still like this, and there's an acceptance of wherever you are in that moment. But like with anything else, over time, you build flex that muscle of mind being able to relax. You build that skill of being able to sit a little bit longer with the thoughts slowing down. And at some point, you may lose track of any of those thoughts. They may pass through without grabbing onto you at all. And for some people, it may take a little bit longer for them to find that. But these are even for seasoned practitioners of meditation. We're all in a different season and state of life at every moment and every day, right?
Yeah.
And so the things that you're skilled at today, you might not be so skilled at tomorrow because how you're equipped for that day isn't the same.
Yeah,
So
that
I
makes
think
sense.
over time, you gain this little bit more ability to sit with yourself regardless of what's happening. right?
Are you familiar with Dr. John Deloney?
No.
You Dr. John is he's a good friend of Lane's, and I've gotten to know him through correspondence and social media a little bit, but he's actually part of Dave Ramsey's team. He works
Okay.
with Dave Ramsey, but he's got multiple PhDs in education and psychology, and he's got an amazing podcast show that you need to check out. It's actually, I think it's number two in like that genre in the
How do
whole
you
world.
spell his last name?
Delony, Deloney.
Deloney. Okay.
I'll send you his info. But
Cool.
um, I think you'd really love him and stuff. He's he actually wrote a couple books, and I've got them, and one of them is oh, what's it called? It's about anxiety. Hold on, I want to
Mm.
get the title right. It's in the other room, or else I would just pull it up right now and look at building a non-anxious life.
Mm.
That's the book that I'm like in the middle of reading right now of
Okay, I
his.
think I saw you post the cover.
Yeah.
Did you, or was that the one before?
No, that's this one. Yeah,
Okay.
I've been a little slow on my reading. But he talks about anxiety a lot and how anxiety is nothing but just a warning to your body. Like it could be a warning of something good or bad. Like it's there. It's a
Right.
warning. Like anxiousness is something that I deal with a lot and I've dealt with a lot. And one of the things that I
Yeah.
would say is probably one of the bigger things that holds me back sometimes from a lot of things. But um, I think that for me is why I've never been able to like sit there in a room
Mhm.
and just be able to meditate. Like I still have to be doing something active to help quiet that down for my brain to quiet down. And I know that some people are listening to this or watching this and they're probably like, that either makes sense or that doesn't make any sense at all, right? But that's always been like I've always had to try to almost outrun my anxiety to do
I think
something
the key,
faster than what my
yeah.
anxiety is
So
building
then
up,
that
right?
slows.
Yeah,
But I
and I've
think
gotten
the
a lot
key
better at
to,
that, and I can kind of just sit out in nature a little bit more, and I can just be out with the horses, like I said, or do things like that.
well, you
But I
sit
think
with
that,
it when you do that. You stay with it a little bit. And
yeah,
that's that little moment of accepting who you are for what you are at the moment. And that
yeah,
doctor's right. Like everything's energy. And that anxiety is a certain very specific vibration and frequency of energy that is alerting of you of something.
right.
Something that maybe you might be more energetic of a being than you we're getting outside of CBD and yoga, but you might be
That's all
more
right.
and not really energetic of a being than you think, you or some one of the listeners.
Yeah.
And that anxiety, I've met people who that energy hits them before even the person or the situation does. They can
Oh,
feel
yeah.
that coming. And so when you can recognize that anxiety as a warning or your energy telling you something, right? We can manage that. And the really beautiful thing, probably I should have led with this, the history of yoga, hatha yoga in particular, but the history of yoga is that all of these poses, they're called asanas, right? Warrior and downward dog, they're asanas.
Okay.
These asanas and movements were originally designed to open up the joints of the body, the hips, the shoulders, align the spine, and yoga was practiced prior to meditation. The idea was to open the channels and the corners of the body so that you could sit longer in meditation. And that's how the Buddha,
Mm.
it, his name was Siddhartha, the Christian man,
Oh,
found
okay. Yeah,
enlightenment
I've heard of him.
was, did I give you that book?
No, you didn't give me that book, but I've heard
I'm
that
going to
name
send you
before.
that. It's a tiny Siddhartha Gautama is this it's tiny little book and it's a story of Buddha the Christian man, but yoga was done so that you could open your body, loosen the tension so you could sit longer in meditation and
Mm.
find whatever source of enlightenment or opening you could for yourself. So what you're saying is very relevant, like moving your body and getting that out might bring you what you need to be able to calm the body, and getting in touch with the body to be able with breath is the key. And that's what, if you and I were working together, that's what I would do with you, is just work on breath work, because your breath is like this partner that you haven't even met yet in your body.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds crazy, but when it happens and you can find calm or change the regulation of your system that's going one way with breath, you're literally changing the chemistry. It's like a drug, right? You're
Yeah,
using
that's
your
true.
breath to change the chemistry of your body. So that's where we'd start.
So you mentioned earlier that, you're back to teaching yoga, and I know you teach a few classes a week. In terms of what you've seen yoga do for people with in recovery, whether that be physical or substance abuse recovery, like anything like that, what have you noticed yoga doing in terms of helping people recover? Is it the breath work? Is it the stretching and mobility? Is it just the quieting of the brain? Like, what is it about yoga that a lot of people are gravitating towards as a means of recovery tool? Like, I even see there's a lot of NFL players that in the off season have incorporated yoga into their regimen. Obviously, I mean, it makes sense for flexibility and mobility and things like that. But in terms of like the people that you've worked with or that you've seen be healed, or I don't know if healed's the term, but has seen yoga greatly enhance their recovery efforts, like, can you talk a little bit more about that and the role of that in it?
I think that first and foremost, this actually goes hand in hand a little bit with the CBD, because the NFL and the NHL are the first two of those sports organizations that have now de unbanned cannabis as a product to be tested, and are encouraging and promoting CBD supplements. So that's really exciting, because though marijuana studies with high THC products have shown to slow performance. And I think you've done some of this talk in the past about THC and CBD in terms of performance, but quality, natural, organic CBD in certain studies have been shown to enhance performance, right? So this goes a little hand in hand, because for example, NFL players, like, yoga is a regular practice that's involved in a lot of these professional sports along with their workouts, right?
Hmm.
And so I think that number one, like you said, flexibility, strength, mobility, all of that's really important. We both know, as you're building strength constantly in your body, you've got to relieve some of that tension to allow the muscles to grow, to
Yeah.
allow the body to not find more injury through that tension. So yoga goes perfectly, in my opinion, for most athletes, especially strength building athletes. Um, when it comes to a little bit more, what we can talk about is kind of the trauma side and that healing side for people. I think what happens in yoga, and I've gotten the chance to work with a local university. I'm not sure that I can name them. So, but a
Okay.
local university's volleyball team, which they might even be uh, D1. I'm not sure. Anyhow, I worked with the volleyball players several times incorporating yoga, especially after some of their very big competitions or tournaments.
Yeah.
The mental side of what we've done was so much bigger than the physical. Of course, it feels good for them to stretch and open up certain areas that I know they're using, right? But
Right.
when it came to this kind of mental relaxation, visualization's really important for athletes. And in yoga and meditation, you can really offer people a lot of different avenues to visualization, or in their own mind, that they can drop into. Like for you, for example, if we were doing a guided meditation, I would know to talk about, if I wanted you to visualize somewhere, it would be the pasture with the
Yeah.
horses, or, in the spaces that are really comforting to you. So that, I think, can be beneficial mentally. Um, if I get too far off, direct me back,
No,
because
no, this is good. I'm
I
curious.
get very excited by this stuff. But I've also watched, when you move into your body, trauma and injury and all different situations like that are stored in the body. And you can do a
Right.
lot of research on this, right? They're literally like programmed into the muscle. And
Well,
as you
stress is like the
move,
silent killer. I mean,
what'd you say?
stress is known as the silent killer.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
Yeah,
Literally, if we could see the way it wreaks havoc through the body, and disease very much is dis-ease in the body, right? That either way. So, if as you move into your body with yoga in different ways that you likely have not moved into, especially if you're new to it, yoga has been commercialized and westernized in a way that it was meant for these tiny little skinny perfect shaped people that wear these tiny clothes, and it's just not the way it is,
right.
right?
It's not
Yoga was,
realistic.
pardon?
It's not real life. It's not
It
realistic.
isn't. And it's not even the roots of what the history of yoga was ever intended to be, right? You've seen the big laughing fat Buddha. But kind of allowing people to be introduced to new ways of moving into their body and finding these little nooks and crannies where things are hidden. Trauma that's either
Yeah,
physical from injury or emotional, or I'm going to go real deep here, ancestral trauma that's passed down through the generations, right? That exists in the DNA of our body. And so as you start to move into that, it looks a little different for all of us because everybody's story is different.
right.
And when people have a moment in a safe space to move into that and feel or experiencing something like that in their body, when there's tears or I hear the, it's like that emotional release is the true release of that from your body. We can move all we want, but when you breathe and physically exhale that, or that emotional vibration comes out through crying or laughing, that's often where I think people are drawn back to this practice. Not only do you find that you can do things you didn't think you could do strength wise, I could never really handstand, or I could stand on my head all day right now. I've worked really hard to learn how to do those things. Those were things I could never do before in my life. And so I found strength and ability on the mat that I didn't know I have, which means I have strength and ability off the mat that I don't know I
Yeah.
have. Right. So, same thing with this. They find that I can feel a certain way after a yoga practice that looks different than the person next to me. I can release something. I can find something. Maybe I'll try it again, you know?
So, what there are so many different types of yoga.
Hmm.
There's the hot yoga. I think a lot of people know about that. The
Hmm.
people also see that the very um, light, like non-strenuous type yoga. There's chair.
Restorative yoga,
Yeah, there's
chair yoga, yin yoga,
yeah. So,
aerial yoga.
what do you? I know you do a bunch of different types. What for you is your favorite type of yoga to do, or or what is the one that you get the most benefit from? Like, do you have one that you just really enjoy doing and one that really actually gives you that release that you're looking for?
Yeah, for sure. I have my favorites, like, and this is going to be hard. It's like saying which child is your favorite, even though we have one, so that's easy. Um,
That's why I kept
so
it to just one.
me too, right? So I think for me, I started yoga when I was 19, and then after I had Gia, I found hot yoga. I
Mm,
had been introduced to hatha yoga, which is very traditional poses, even sometimes very commonly using a folded chair to, get into certain poses, and everything from restorative and yin yoga. But when I found hot vinyasa yoga, vinyasa means breath with movement. So
okay.
technically in a vinyasa yoga practice, whether it's hot or not, each movement is a breath. The inhale is this, the exhale is this. You follow your breath. And so you might move at different paces because people around you breathe at different rates. So vinyasa yoga for me was where I found how important breath work was. And I'm going to say something that's kind of really deep and heavy here, but through my practice of yoga, I've kind of come to realize that we come into this world on one very significant inhale.
Okay.
And at the end of our life, we exit this life on one very significant exhale. And your life consists of all those breaths in between.
Yeah.
And at this point in my life, I found that breath is the source of my calm, patience, showing up how I want to in situations that are challenging. And I also don't know when that final exhale is coming. And I
Mm,
want to know that if it's me by myself in that moment, that I've made peace with this relationship of breath,
right.
and wherever I'm going after, I'm exiting peacefully. So Vinyasa yoga for me was magical because when I found this importance of breath, it really changed my life. Hot yoga, then combining hot vinyasa, really changed my body physically. I could do things in there that I couldn't believe. The first class, I was like, I'm going to die or pass out or throw up, one of
How
those
hot is it
three.
usually in there?
Traditionally, a hot yoga class is between 99 and 109 degrees,
Okay.
depending on the studio. The class that I teach that's hot yoga, we put it to 90.
Okay.
But it's not technically a hot yoga studio with the extra heaters and such. We
So
use
it's
a
like
thermostat.
lukewarm yoga.
Yeah, exactly. Warm yoga. They sweat. So, but the hot yoga let me find a physical ability that I had not found before in myself. And so it was very empowering. So if I had to say my favorite, hot vinyasa.
What do you think the reason for that is? I mean, is it like literally just from a physiological standpoint, like your muscles are more warmed up, you're more like you're able to actually do more activity or stronger stuff because you're getting more blood flow to the area, like, or is there another component of that is making you tap into a strength that you didn't know?
Yeah, absolutely. There's two sides of it, at least for me. That heat shows you that physically your muscles relax, you can just
Yeah.
move and stretch, even if you're not trying, right? But then I was able to really push my edges further with that heat because my body was allowing it. But the other side of it is that challenge of the heat, where, like I said, am I going to throw up, die, or pass out, right? When you make it through something like that, even if you sit in child's pose or lie on the mat the entire time, that heat element adds an intensity that's mental,
Hmm.
that you're like, holy moly, look what I just did,
Right.
So in the heat and the difficulty. So it's the physical and it's the mental of it for me that's so
Well,
productive.
it's like the analogy, like, if you want to bend and form steel, you have to apply heat,
Yeah.
right? And then you bend and form it into whatever new shape you want it to be in. And
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer, like, you have to challenge yourself if you want to grow. Like, just staying comfortable is not going to allow any sort of growth, whether it be physical or mental or emotional or anything like that. So to hear those two challenges that you go through during that, it makes sense why you're tapping into a whole new strength than you think. Because I'll tell people this all the time, like clients of mine when they're working out at the gym, and I'm saying like, how hard are you pushing yourself? So like, "Well, I'm pushing myself hard." I'm like, okay, well, let's assume that you had somebody else there with you working out. Do you think that you would take it to another level? And they're like, yeah, probably. I'm like, and that's okay. And that's normal. Like, you can only push yourself so hard by yourself, which is why having coaches, having yoga instructors, having these people to help push you is so important because it's a survival mechanism. The brain is going to find the path of least resistance in order to keep you alive. That's how we've flourished for
Yeah. I
however many
agree.
centuries we've been here, right, on Earth.
Right.
And it's like so many people are afraid to unlock that fire inside of them and push themselves and do the hard things. You have to do the hard things. If you want to do hard things, you have to do hard things. And that's just really cool to hear that something like yoga, which I'll be honest, probably a lot of people that follow me probably don't follow a lot of yoga because I don't do yoga. I don't know that, right? So to hear someone who has an exercise science background, who was a personal trainer, who lifted weights, who did all that stuff, talk about how yoga can still push you in a whole nother way, I think it's going to be really eye-opening for a lot of people here. And perhaps maybe get some new yogis. Is that the
Yeah.
term?
I mean,
People
my
that do
job,
yoga they're called yogis.
yes, yogis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
My
maybe this
my
will,
intent is just to share it with people. I found such a path of healing and growth physically, mentally, spiritually, and I still today. It's my biggest source of resource that I go to, really, to
yeah.
keep me centered. I think if I can share it, all you need is that person to find that one moment in their yoga practice where they see that like, oh my gosh, I've done something for myself, you know, to come back to it. You find that thing in you that you didn't know you had, and that's attractive.
If someone if
It's
someone's listening
David
to
on a
this and they wanted to start
podcast.
yoga today,
Hmm.
like what would be your advice to someone who's never done it and not wanting to be overwhelmed by all those different types of yogas and the hot yoga maybe, like where would you tell someone to start?
Yeah. I think that I would I'd want to know what their goal was, right? Like if your goal
Mm,
is for some mental support, some emotional kind of working inward, that more spiritual path, then I would encourage people to start with that Calm app I had mentioned with.
okay.
Um, in terms of finding a daily practice that's easy. It's a 10-minute thing that you can open up guided meditation, and that just gets you in a space where you force yourself to give yourself 10 minutes.
Okay.
So I would encourage something like that. There's several different apps. Insight Timer is pretty great too. Um, Also, I could recommend maybe a couple people, but if you're looking for maybe at home yoga, you can go onto YouTube and search Yoga by Adriene is kind of the one that everybody knows who she is.
Mm,
But
okay.
you at this point, you can just search that and start to find something that looks appealing to you. Um, in terms of whether it's a person that you would look interested in following or a type of yoga, chair yoga. Chair yoga is very underrated, I think, that it's really just for like old people, right? The
I
idea
mean,
of
that's
chair,
that's the initial thought I have when I see it is because that's all I ever see people do is old people do chair
yeah.
yoga. So I always make that association. I'm sure many people do.
I mean, the concept is too, it's anybody that isn't really interested or able to get up and off the ground, because you don't go up and off the ground. But when you think about people that maybe are in a weight challenge and,
Hmm.
you know, obesity makes it really hard to move around and do the things that you want to do.
Yes.
That doesn't mean you can't do yoga. It means a class where you're not going to be required to uncomfortably get yourself up and off the ground. You don't have to. There's people that are recovering from surgeries,
Yeah.
accidents,
Good point.
backs, knees, shoulders, that can't do standard yoga, can't hold themselves off the ground. So they might be 20 years old, 30 years old, 50 years old, right? Somebody that maybe has a perpetual injury or a handicap can still do yoga and practice yoga in a chair, and it can be productive. So I just kind of like to throw out that misconception that yoga, chair yoga, is really good for people at all ages at different times of life.
Have you ever taught a chair yoga class?
I teach it. That's one of the classes
Oh, it
I
is one
teach.
of them that
I
you teach?
teach three a week, and one of them's a chair yoga, one is a hot vinyasa, and the other one's called yoga breath. And that was
Okay.
kind of one thing I wanted to say when you asked about what would be the most, or what was most beneficial. Hot vinyasa is really my favorite. But the more that I dig into some really non-traditional yoga that I teach, that's somatic movement, which essentially is like instead of a down dog like this, you're
Mhm.
kind of moving around really organically, like
Oh,
breathing
okay.
into the body. And when this feels good, you kind of stay here and breathe, right? So
Okay.
yoga breath is about slow somatic movements, maybe even just sitting and circling the hips around the waist and arching the pelvis, because for all of us, there's a lot down in those areas that
Yeah.
gets hidden, and tension and tightness that later can lead to injury. So somatic movement, breath work together, I'm finding is really beneficial. I
Well,
tend to bury aggression, right? Like if I try to like bury it a bit, and that gives you an opportunity to let that stuff out a little
yeah.
bit and dig into it. Your breath becomes like a broom where you open up. A lot of times in class I tell them, all right, we're in the pose, the junk drawer is open, and we've shed
Mm.
some light on that spot, and that's enough maybe for today. If you want a little bit more and you take a deep breath in, the exhale, imagine it's like a broom, and then with the drawer open, now we're sweeping some of that shit out, right?
I
And
like it.
maybe we'll
That's a good
just close the
analogy.
drawer and tomorrow we'll sweep. But at least you opened it and you have the ability with your breath to move that out, because the vibration of the breath,
Yeah.
it's a literal vibration in your body that your body responds to. Your body doesn't
Oh, for
respond to
sure.
words. Your body responds to vibration and movement.
Before we move on to the next topic I want to talk to you about, I got to ask, where's the most comforting, relaxing? slash exciting place you've ever done yoga? Because I know like you do it everywhere you go. You go on
Mhm.
vacation, you do it on the beach, you do it at the whatever I still call it Comiskey Park, even though that's not Comiskey Park
Mhm.
anymore. Like it's always going to be Comiskey to
For
to
sure.
us who are 40 or older. Um,
Yeah.
but where's the coolest place you've ever, I guess, practiced yoga, done yoga?
I have a picture. Maybe I'll send it to you. You can drop it in here. But when we got married in 2004, we were in Hawaii, and I mean, I was very not very deep into my yoga experience or journey. And I remember waking up very early every day and going out by the ocean
Hmm.
and just practicing yoga. I didn't even really know a lot of what I was doing. It was the moment where I remember just starting to move, how it felt good to me. And Bob had come down and captured this image, and I'm in a Warrior Three kind of Superman pose, right?
Oh yeah,
And I'm reaching out over the ocean, and I, to this day, remember that feeling of freedom and strength and peace. It was overwhelming. And the fact that he captured the moment was huge. So
yeah.
I have
Well,
a
the
picture of
fact that
that.
Bob was up that early in the morning is
Yeah.
huge. Let's be
That
honest.
was as
Like
much the
that's
miracle.
probably the more miraculous
I
thing about it.
know.
But
We were 5 hours off or something like that. But I think in Kauai and Hawaii, on the edge of the world, is what it really felt like to me. And before I realized, before I knew what was happening in this yoga experience, I felt in my body right there. There was something much bigger than me occurring. So yeah, Hawaii would be the place.
that's a pretty cool place, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to kind of turn the tide a little bit and talk a little bit about the CBD stuff.
Yeah.
I think maybe not so much anymore, but sorry if you can hear the dogs. They're
No. Hi,
going
guys.
crazy. Okay, good. You can't hear it. It won't show up on the podcast. Um, I think there's still a lot of confusion out there as far as what CBD actually is. I think there's still a lot of people that think it's marijuana.
Mhm.
Like they think of it as the
Yeah.
THC marijuana. Like,
Psychoactive drug.
yeah. In the simplest terms you can, what is the difference? Like,
So it's the hemp plant. We've got the hemp plant, and the hemp plant is composed of THC, marijuana, and CBD. And within CBD, there are many different kinds of cannabinoids. The most popular are CBD, CBG, CBN. And they're specifically addressing different issues for people. But the idea is that as you pull CBD out of the hemp plant, because it was in with THC, there's still trace amounts of THC in CBD. And the important part to understand here is that just like calcium and vitamin D are, I think it's vitamin D is a receptor for calcium in the body. You can take
yep,
calcium, but if you take it with vitamin D, your body will absorb more of it. The
correct.
same thing is the case with CBD. THC is a receptor for CBD in the body. So in trace amounts, which are 0.3% or lower of the product, that's how much THC is in CBD, um, what we're talking about. That helps you absorb the CBD better. Okay. So
Okay.
what I think is really important to know is that there's also an isolate form where you pull any THC that's remaining out. So you either have CBD that's full spectrum with that little bit of THC that is going to help you absorb more CBD, but does exist in there. So somebody that would have a drug test,
Yeah.
or somebody that were recovering from drug use or something, it's important to know, right? There is an isolate form. Anything that said isolate means they extract out. The one thing I also want you to pay attention to, just giving a little information, is when there's an isolate and you have to extract something, it's important to pay attention to what's being used to extract this. Right. So
Okay.
products that are called CO2 extracted are really important because they use CO2 to extract that, whatever the component is, as opposed to when it's not CO2 extracted, it might be different chemicals are used to extract that, which then we don't want in our body. So keep in mind anything that's an isolate of sorts, you would want to be a CO2 extracted.
So, okay, let me see if I understood this right. So, a little bit of THC that's left in it. that's not extracted, like before it's
Hmm.
extracted.
Full spectrum is what it's called.
Full spectrum. Okay. So the THC is kind of like the gateway for the CBD to get in better.
Yeah,
Did I?
essentially that's what a receptor in the body is. I
Yeah.
might have this one backwards, but it's the same thing with vitamin D and calcium. You
Right.
can take all the calcium you want, but vitamin D is a receptor in your body, a receptor source in the cell to accept and let you absorb more of that
Okay.
calcium. Same
So
thing, THC is a receptor. They like each other. So the
yeah.
THC in the body allows the CBD to absorb better because we excrete a portion of whatever supplements, right? If you take more
Oh, for
protein than
sure.
your body can
For sure.
absorb, you excrete it. Same thing with this. If your body's going to excrete a portion of the supplements that you use that don't get absorbed. So if there's something that you can take as a receptor or include as a receptor to
Yeah.
increase, I think it's called bioefficacy
Yeah.
of the supplement, that your body is more effective in absorbing it.
Okay. So that's what I thought I heard you say. So I guess my follow-up question to that is, how do I want to phrase this? If you remove the THC,
An
you
isolate.
isolate it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're basically not going to get the full benefits of the CBD, right? Because you don't have as much of that direct transport in as you do. So with that being said, it doesn't mean you're not going to get the benefits of CBD. You're just not going to get as much as the full spectrum, correct?
That is correct. And the one thing that's important here that maybe I should have led with is our body has, and you can research this, our body has an endocannabinoid system. We have a respiratory system, a digestive system, cardiovascular. We all have and are born with an endocannabinoid system that our body on a certain level creates and produces its own cannabinoids. And
Okay.
over time, like any other system, environmental toxins, the way we eat, the way we've handled our body, these systems work less effectively and some of them shut down in our body. And when you start to research the benefits of cannabinoids in the body for first, and one of the largest ones is anti-inflammation. And we don't have to go too deep to understand how destructive inflammation in the body is in so many ways, right? So our body, by taking a supplement of CBD, we're going to start to work with our body to help to more effectively kick that natural endocannabinoid system into effect. And then our body works better with the supplements. You may end up needing less of those supplements at some point, or it's kind of like with any other supplement in the body where you're trying to really work with the natural sources in the body that aren't producing as they used to.
So, okay, I guess I got two questions here. So, well, I'm guessing the full spectrum is usually more money, right? I mean, it's a higher quality. It's usually like most
Absolutely. Yeah,
things, it's
yeah.
higher.
A bit more expensive. Yeah. But dollars on a bottle.
Okay. So I guess that might be one reason for someone to go with a lesser version, for lack of a
Uh-huh.
better term, right?
This is an important conversation.
But I think that, okay, so I'm going to relate this back to like when people ask me about what sort of supplements they should take or vitamins and
Mhm.
minerals, things like that, right? I always say, well, you could take a multivitamin and you're probably going to be okay, but you don't really know what you need until you get blood work done, right? Blood work's
Until
going to
you what? I'm
show
sorry.
till you get blood work done.
Right.
Blood work's going to show if you're deficient in any specific vitamin or mineral, and then you could, because a lot of times people will start taking all these vitamins and stuff, and they're really not deficient in it. They're getting enough of it in their diet, but they just think, oh, they hear vitamin C and vitamin D and all this stuff, and they think, oh, I got to take this. When in reality, they might be already getting enough of what they need through their whole food diet to begin
Sure.
with. So, with that being said, is there a way to get blood work done to tell if somebody needs to take CBD or not? Does that make sense?
It definitely makes sense. I think when it comes to CBD, if you're looking for something like that, you have either a condition or a concern that you want to attend to, right? I
Okay.
have inflammation in the body. I'm not sleeping well. I have mood issues that I want to adjust. I have digestion issues. And when people are looking for a more natural approach or remedy than prescription meds, that's when they're going to start searching out something like this. Um, so in that case, I think it's really important to know what it is you're attending to,
Hmm.
right? It doesn't really, in the case of CBD, it's not necessarily that you're going to be deficient in something like calcium or vitamin D. We can test for that and then know that we need that supplementation.
Right.
But when it comes to CBD, it's not really something that you're going to test for or find in your blood. It's going to be this natural support for something that you either a symptom that you have or a condition. Like you may already know that you have a condition that causes you inflammation, right? Fibromyalgia, something like
Right.
that, that you already are aware of that's causing you inflammation. And you either want a natural alternative to the drugs or you want some support maybe to the side effects of the prescriptions that you're taking.
Yeah.
And that's really when somebody that knows, for example, I have really extensive knowledge of all the products that I use and sell. And so that's when you need to be able to talk to somebody that says, that can talk to you and say, this is what you're feeling, this is what you're dealing with, here's where I suggest we start. And natural supplements, it's not a one size fits all for anything. Even prescription meds
Right.
aren't. There's
For sure.
suggested servings. So you have to be willing to kind of start small always, um, and and work through that process. Know what you're feeling in your body to say, hey, this is what I'm feeling now. Get in touch enough with your own symptoms and how your body feels to know if it's feeling different. So I don't know if that fully answered.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah. And when I said get blood work, I wasn't expecting like, I know blood work's not going to say like, yeah, you need to take CBDs, but like if it was something particular that you're looking for within the blood work to say, okay, well, maybe the vitamins and minerals isn't going to help the specific issue, which I don't know. I mean, most of the time, vitamins and minerals are going to help a lot of things, right? I mean, if you got to
yeah.
be, but if there was something specific that you see like in blood work that's like, okay, well, you're handling everything on the whole food and nutrient side, like that's not going to help. Like we need to try this and this might help because the endocannabinoid, I can't say that. How do you say
Yeah,
it?
you almost got it.
Endocannabinoid?
Endocannabinoid.
Cannabinoid, yes.
There you go.
Um, I mean, now when I deal with blood work with people and all that stuff, I've never once thought about that aspect of it. That's just not my avenue, right? So like what shows up, is there something that shows a deficiency in that in blood work, or is it just like what you're saying, if there's just this inflammation, this chronic inflammation or this depression or whatever it is you're going through, we're just going to try it that route. We're just going to try CBD
Yeah,
for
I
that
think
route.
that, I mean, I don't think I'd feel comfortable saying there's anything that I know that necessarily would show up and say this deficiency. If you look back on the history of CBD2 originally, like Charlotte's Web was the first company, and that was for a child who was having terrible seizures.
Okay.
And this was the CBD was originally used medically to as experimentation, and it was monumental in the effect it's had on children with seizures. So everybody can do that research a little bit to see those benefits. So there, I suggest PubMed is a good, I think, resource for scientific evidence
Yeah.
of things. So I would suggest going there and looking at certain conditions because there is very specific research that's been done on, and I am not a doctor and I'm not here to make any medical claims, but there, take a look. There is people that are going through cancer treatments and
Hmm.
the benefits of CBD or CBG specifically working with the side effects of the cancer meds. Um, Digestion issues, IBS people really swear by the CBG because it's specifically formulated for gut health. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of conditions that over the years I've been working with these products for 4 years now, and I there are a lot of conditions that the affiliates and people that use the products have testimonials of and how it's helped. I mean, little things like sunburn. It's incredibly great for topical on a sunburn and it's natural, right? Um,
So
so I'm
talk a
not
little
sure.
bit about those products. Like what's your favorite stuff that you take on a regular basis? Like what are some things
Yeah.
and also what's the difference between all these different CBDs? Like you
Yeah.
said the
Well, I'll tell
CBDG, I
you.
mean G makes sense for gut health,
Yeah,
right?
and
But like
CBN for night.
per
So
night.
it was made easy, which I don't know if there was a scientist that did that, but thank you to them. So Nuvita is the company that I've been with for years. And I don't know how candidly you want me to speak here, but
No, you're fine. I mean, I don't have
cannabis
any
products have been
affiliations with
something.
them. You're good.
Okay. Cannabis products have been something that I was kind of, my body naturally was drawn to as opposed to, say, drinking for years. But the history of that is high THC cannabis products, right? So I never really had the education of CBD. And even when I first was introduced to CBD, it was like the gas station CBD that I'd see. And I was kind of like, what do you need that for? You know? And I had no idea that our body had an endocannabinoid system and that the medical uses for cannabis in general were so much larger, right? So as I learned over time, I started to notice that for me, I had a lot of back issues. And even as I was doing yoga, mine turned out, I think, to be a lot of stored energy and past injury and trauma type stuff that I'd stored in my body and needed to move. But for me, I found that first CBD, my back felt better. I didn't have as much. What I learned was inflammation. Um, and then over time, I found that there was a lot of, I started to ask myself why I was using high THC products. And the answer was mood regulation or calm. And I found that the more of these CBD Nuvita products that I used, the less I was drawn to the high THC, that my body was kind of naturally regulating and finding a calm a little bit easier, to be perfectly honest. So I started digging more into the products. At that point, there were really just the three oils, tinctures, right? So the quickest way for CBD to be absorbed is sublingual under the tongue,
Hmm.
and it's a tincture and oil that you use. And there's three kinds that we at least have at Nuvita. And the CBD is full spectrum. We do offer an isolate, a THC-free version, and we offer a pet version as well, which is how I got deeper into this too. We aren't going to go too deep into pets because I'm still devastatingly missing my dog Meg, but Meg used it, and she was a Yorkie poo that was a few months short of 17 when she
Yeah.
died, and she was really essentially healthy when she passed. So I started using that as well. But the tinctures, we have three, and full spectrum CBD is kind of that go-to for everybody, where you would start to see how does this feel in your body? Is it something that you're looking for digestion or for anti-inflammation or for regulation of mood? And there are many more qualities that it can help with, but those are kind of the ones that for me I use. The second one that we use is CBG, and CBG is called the Rolls Royce of CBD. It's like the stem cell of CBD. It's the most rare occurring cannabinoid in the plant. So as we
Okay.
separate the CBD off of the hemp, the most rare cannabinoid you'll find over there is CBG. And it's specifically formulated for gut health and for muscle regeneration. So a lot of people use it for, which we probably should have led with this one, David, for pre and post workout and recovery, because it's very good for, again, like the stem cell of CBD. It helps with pre post workout, with recovery, with gut health. And it's also kind of a secret weapon, which I might have been using here for skin health. So you can put it topically on your skin. I
Oh,
put a few
really?
drops in my face lotion, and it's really good for skin health. And the last formula is CBN, and that's specifically for nighttime. There is a lot of people that have severe anxiety that use CBN during the day because it works well for them. And then there's some testimonials, quite a few, of people that coming off pain meds that are
Mm.
trying to use something more natural that use CBN. So CBN is really for nighttime and for pain.
So does it make you like fall asleep, or what is the component in it that does? It's not like melatonin or anything like that.
So I mean, for
It just
lack
calms your
of
body down enough to just
Yeah, and
relax.
again, everybody's different, right? Your body chemistry, how CBN affects me might be different than you. And there are some cases where some people are like, that one kept me awake, this one put me to sleep. And
Yeah.
that's when we get to know our bodies and we start small so that we know, okay, your chemistry, it's just like, what is it? Adderall. If you don't
Oh
have the
yeah.
condition to take that the Adderall's for, it gives the opposite effect.
Right.
Same concept that some people's body chemistry is going to be different. But essentially, like for me, CBN, it makes me sleepy. And so I
Okay.
take it about an hour before bed, and it helps me not so much fall asleep, that helps me stay asleep. We have gummies too. You'd asked about the different products. So over time, as this company has grown, um, the other thing is that please never, ever, ever buy CBD at a gas station or a smoke shop.
I
Um,
didn't know you could buy it at a gas station. When you said that, I was thinking in the back of my mind, like I never knew that.
Look in the corner, in the bottles or back behind, because it is a 21 and over product. But
Hmm.
um, that being said, some people that use natural, homeopathic, and herbs and such, there are lots of people, and I'll tell you, probably most of the affiliates in this company have used the products with their children too, as opposed to trying medications for things, right? So, especially kids that have ADHD or severe anxiety. And, we're growing up in a different world right now and raising our kids in a different world, and what's happened with school and COVID and things like that. The mental health is a very real concern for us with our children too. So sometimes these
Yeah.
natural alternatives are very attractive to parents. Nonetheless, we're not necessarily promoting it for that here,
Right.
but I will
Yeah.
tell you, any of those CBDs, like if you pulled out a CBD and looked at it and it was clear, it should not be clear. It comes from a plant. It's natural, right?
Okay.
There's a coloring to it, but it also shouldn't be orange or orange flavored. So those are the things you got to pay attention to. Even some of the larger companies. The thing I love about Nuvita, it's a woman-owned company. They go out of their way with extra cost to make sure that the products are organic, non-GMO, CO2 extracted, so there's not acetone still in the product when it was made in isolate. Things like that are really important, and there's a certificate of analysis on every batch of every product. And if you can't find that on a, it's called a COA, but it's literally tells you exactly what's in there. So you can do a COA on an organic carrot and there will be trace amounts of arsenic in it because it's grown in the ground, right? You want to know, you need to know what's in there. And if it's not trace amounts, you need to be aware, right? That
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
what you're putting in your body. So Nuvita for me has proven to have products that took me from, I was fine with this high THC gig, like thinking, and as I got older, as my body's changed over time, as I've tried to be more aware of what I'm putting into it and having a garden and growing our own food and trying to, live as long as we can happily and
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
um, you lean towards paying attention to what you put in your body, what you put on your skin. So, Nuvita for me, there's gummies, there's topical for surface, for paint on for topical pain. We have a greens product that has CBG in it. So
Okay.
that's kind of really unique. There's other greens out there that have a lot of the same things we do in it. Like there's an adaptogen blend, a mushroom blend, which is very popular, but also very ancient in use for
Mm.
good health, right? But we have CBG in our greens. We just released some detox products. I've never done a detox in my life because I like to eat food and I don't want
Yeah.
to run to be attached to the bathroom. But this is a natural, passive, gentle daily detox that I actually think your wife has been using.
Yeah,
But
she has.
it's pretty natural. And for me, I've just, I feel good. So you just have to know how you feel in these products. But it works for me, and the company is growing, and I think there's a lot of authenticity behind it. They spend a lot of extra money testing products and making sure they know what's in it. This new product, there was supposed to be a natural um, potassium bicarbonate, I think it was in there, which
Okay.
is a natural occurring preservative.
Mm.
But for people that have an autoimmune disease, that is not something that they can take. And so they went back to the table, drew the product back, and got a scientist in that works in more natural preservatives. And the product has cinnamon bark oil in it, right? Which
Okay.
still serves the purpose of the preservative, but it's natural and not adversely effective to people with autoimmune. So that took a lot of extra money. It took the product off the shelf for an extra few months, but I've watched this company do that over and over to make sure what they're putting out is what they say they are. So,
So, where can people, if people are interested in CBD or this company or learning more, where can they find information?
yeah, so maybe you're better at this than I am, but maybe in the
Yeah,
notes you can
I'll
put
put
some
your
stuff.
stuff below.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and give a website. Nuvita, Nuvita is the company, and you can find the website. It's nuvitaglobal.com because now with going global. So
Big time.
CBD is a growing market, definitely in the United States, and especially people are becoming more and more aware of knowing what's in the products. But as to expand outside the country, you really um, have to be careful with CBD still, right? So we've got some
Yeah, there's a
products
lot
that
of
are
legal
non,
issues, I'm
that
sure.
have no THC in them, but we'll give you the link below and there's a code. The company is interesting in the way that you can just be a customer. You can use somebody's code and get a discount. You can get your own code, which gives you a bigger discount on your products. And if you share that, you can make a commission on it, an
Yeah.
affiliate program.
Yep.
And then you can also go more like direct sales, where you can build a team and have this be a lot of people have it as a full time gig. So I'm somewhere right in the middle of it. The company is growing faster than I expected it to, so mine's growing a little bit more, but uh, it's it's a solid base in terms of what's in the products. So we'll give you some information, and they can
Well,
always reach out to me.
that's exciting. Well, we will wrap it up here. Thank you so much for coming on. If people want to follow you and see all your cool stories and stuff you're doing about Navita, Nativa,
Nuvita, you got it.
Navita. I always get them
Nuvita,
backwards. One time I'll say Navita, one time I'll say Nativa. I always, for some reason, I can't get it straight in my head.
Sativa, Nuvita.
Yeah, but where can they find you? Where are you most active on?
Mostly Instagram, little Facebook feeds over. So I'm Hoosier Yoga Girl on both
Yep.
of those. So
And that'll be listed below too. But thank
yeah,
you for taking some time. I definitely, I mean, this is probably the most extensive conversation about CBD and yoga we've ever had. So I learned a
yay.
lot. I learned a lot, and I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of great information from this. And hopefully, some people start incorporating yoga into their routine, their daily or weekly routine. And if people are out there that are in a lot of pain that think they've tried all avenues, maybe trying some CBD is what you need to do. So you can get in touch with my sister and she'll help you out. So,
I do some private lessons and some over Zoom for yoga too, and
oh, okay.
one-on-one sessions, so people can reach out for that. And I like this. I feel like now more than ever, I realize kind of the combination of you and I, the experience we have,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
mean, you've got your master's and really gone further with the education at another level, and we kind of really have a complementing things. I love to encourage people to come to you what you do for coaching. So let's
Well,
do
I
this again.
appreciate it. All right, we'll wrap it up here, and you guys definitely go take a look at my sister's page, give her a follow, and if you guys are interested in yoga or any more questions about CBD, she's the one to ask. So, thanks again, sis.
Love you. Bye.